Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the ECS Board of Trustees to order. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to everyone online. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The mission of ECS is to educate each student to high academic standards using innovative curricula that will foster knowledge, love of, and respect for the environment and preserve it for future generations. We grow citizens. Our vision, every ECS graduate will be an actively engaged citizen driving thoughtful change in the world around them. Let's do a roll call, which I guess I should have done before we did those other things. I see, I'll just say your names as I see them for the board. So Jamie Turner, Noah, Stan O'Loughlin, Meg, Lisa, and online, Tiffany and Jen. And Kristen just texted me that she'll be here in 5 minutes, but we can go ahead and move forward. And I think hopefully Brandon's going to be joining us if he gets out of work. So moving on, we have public comment. We have one person signed up for public comment. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Where is it easiest for me to be? Sit down or?
Wherever you want, really.
Yeah, the mic's over there.
There's a microphone here for people online. I'm not sure if anyone's watching.
Excellent. So I will share this after I've printed copies, just in case. What is my time too? I just want to be.
It's usually 3 minutes, but you're the only person, so.
Cool. We'll see how it goes then. So I originally signed up to give a public comment on the day of the event here in Garfield that impacted the middle school. I have a third grader at the intermediate school.
Actually, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Addie Lord, and have a third grader at the intermediate school. So I originally signed up to speak to all of you on that day. I'm glad that I did, because some of the original sting certainly has subsided, but I think what was most important to me that day sort of remains true, which is my concern with the state of communication of ECS, and I think specifically with the home office. In my statement, I say that the communication that I've been receiving from the school, from teachers, even from the nurse's office, all have been quite phenomenal. I think the day-to-day running, I'm very impressed with the communication. I think the extraordinary events that have been happening, I've been more concerned. And we also happen to have a very large contingent at a bus stop with, I think, 6 families and about 9 kids who all get on and off at our bus stop. So there's been conversations there as well. But specifically on that day, the things that I saw in the communications were targeted to specific portions of the community. So initially to the middle school, in spite of it impacting the transportation needs of at least 3 of the buildings. So I found out from a friend who found out from the news, as opposed to understanding that there could be a transportation impact for my child that day. And it would have been helpful to know, okay, things might change today because of this situation. I think there were also different messages with varying levels of rationale for decisions. I believe the intermediate school families received a message saying that the buses will be 30 minutes late, no other rationale. The primary families, I'm pretty sure, had received a message saying that there was an event at the middle school and this is why. And I know the middle school, and I'm grateful that they received a bit more information. I think that it caused some confusion as to what action should be taken by caregivers. Specifically for middle school families, it wasn't clear that they needed to come pick up or what it meant to have I think there was a policy that was stated, but it was unclear what was needing to happen. And then it also didn't include, as far as I could tell, the staff of each building. I had attempted to call the intermediate school at 2 p.m., who referred me to the bus and then back, and there wasn't any information at 2 p.m. when their release is at a little after 3. So those are some of the pieces. I think that poor communication resulted in middle school families left to navigate street closures and unclear instructions in picking up their students and last minute changes to their schedule without really understanding, which maybe that could have been an option that was presented at 11:30 when the initial communication. We don't know what this is going to look like today. It may mean some changes. I think that could have been very helpful. And then I think that it also resulted in families relying on informal communication through chats or Facebook or other spaces. I know for our bus chat that a lot of people only found out about this happening after I had reached out to say, hey, I don't know exactly what's going on, but there may be changes. And I also know that meant, like for us, I have a neighbor who he gets off from work right at 4, and having been told earlier could have helped. Fortunately, we have enough families that I could help if necessary, if his daughter got home earlier, but not being able to plan a break or something like that had a pretty undue impact. And I think the most in-depth communication with that became post hoc, and there hasn't really been a follow-up about what challenges were encountered and what could be done better in the future. And that's one of the things that I'm most interested in, is not necessarily that I need to be involved or that the community needs to be involved, but the assurance that recognizing that there was something done, it could be done better in the future. It was the first time you encountered this situation. I totally understand that, like, it's not always going to go flawlessly, but it's not necessarily the last time that a situation like this would happen. So I would love to see policies enacted of, hey, if we see something like this in the future, this is what we're going to follow. I know I'm well past 3 minutes, so I appreciate your patience. I also wanted to bring up, because it really struck me, 2 years ago, in August of 2021, there had been a communications task force presentation. They were formed in spring of 2021. It was 8 members of the community. And their presentation, I remember watching it and feeling like it resonated with me and I think other members of the community in a great way. And I did go back to look at my notes on the presentation, and it doesn't feel as though there's been progress or adherence or even taking on the recommendations from that presentation. I have a link here in my notes for that. I'm also happy to email the links for both the notes and it's a Prezi presentation that they had. And then I have a list of a handful of things. I'll stop here, but I think of what can be done. I think the biggest thing that I would love to see is that the home office or communication prioritizes building trust with the community over avoiding liability. Because a lot of the communication comes across as if we don't want to get in trouble or be yelled at for this, but I think that it's a very understanding community, and the lack of information is what kind of erodes the trust. I would love to see that there is more emphasis on the building the trust and figuring out how to address people's concerns, and less so with making sure that it doesn't happen at all, so that we can continue to build the community and have a strengthened community over time.
Thank you so much for your comments, Eddie. We really appreciate you coming here, and we're hearing and absorbing. And,
I appreciate that.
If you could send me an electronic copy of that,
sure.
Then we can include it in our materials.
Absolutely, happy to.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna just jump a little bit out of order for a moment. So we're gonna jump into other business for 8.3, which is our new board member vote. Rohit Acharya has been already here for a couple of previous meetings. The governance committee has recommended that we approve his membership on the board. So the resolution I'll read out loud, 2023-9-2100, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the board membership of Rohit Acharya be approved. Okay, congratulations, Rohit. if you, before you take your seat at the big table, if you want to make your way over to our notary over there, then she can just get you sworn in.
All right, thank you.
And now we're going to go back to the consent agenda, item 5. I believe we're going to pull one item out of this.
Yeah, the Sierra restoration contract.
Okay, so we're going to pull that out of the consent agenda.
Just for some further discussion.
Okay. Do you want to discuss that after? Or
It's placed, it's the Sierra restoration company going to come in and restore essentially the site room and immediate room, intermediate school. We would have had 2 other bids to compete with that. We don't at this juncture, so we'll pull it out. We can approve it today, but if a bid comes in the meantime, ultimately we'll be back in front of you.
Is it time sensitive, or can we just wait until the next meeting?
We can wait till next meeting.
Okay, any comments or questions about the other items in the consent agenda? Okay, good. Resolution 2023-9-2098, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the consent agenda for September 20th, 2023 be approved. Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. All right, let's go to board education, maybe in line with our speaker's comments. So, Mandy?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna, again, John is gonna do diligent community and lottery policy, so we're gonna flip flop until all the second. I think it'll be a little bit,
Okay.
my view might be a little bit more involved.
Do you want longer?
Yeah.
So briefly, let's hit the start of the lottery policy. The lottery policy is not in front of you this evening. That is being worked on currently. To update it, Christine Adams, who's our enrollment coordinator, is working on that right now. The spaces that she's working on within that policy, really, there's a few. There's re-enrollment, a few stricter guidelines that are in the middle of that, kindergarten completion for kiddos heading into grade 1. Previously enrolled students, they need to be in good standing, and she's working on defining what that good standing is. And then the notion of we're not taking kiddos beyond 9th grade and defining what that is all about. And then essentially number 5 is the professional staff and board member preference. And that's the piece that you want to have a conversation with you today. And we have replaced this with 2 questions. One, as we rewrite this, does the board want to have a preference for board members? And secondly, what is good standing mean? And so if there's a moment here to discuss that, I can take notes and you can wrap that into that policy, which will then ultimately be reviewed by you. So just 2 things.
Sorry, John, I missed the good standing for board members in good standing or the good standing component of that.
Right, so one is, should we include a preference for board members? And in doing so, what does good standing mean, right? So can a board member sign up, do a week, and then resign, and ultimately be provided a preference? Well, clearly that needs to be through. So what would good standing be and what might those criteria be? So I leave that to you as a board to sort of discuss. I will take notes and feed that back to our enrollment person.
And while we're considering that, could you just give insight into the logistics of the lottery in terms of what does that mean to have preference? Is it a week?
Now there's a question. Preference is run multiple different ways. And so the big one really is in city and out of city, and we provide according to our charter preference for in city. And that has a descending sort of impact on preference. And so an in-city board member versus a non, a city board member would have different preference. But ultimately, I believe she's thinking first comes professional. In other words, if you work here as a teacher or a staff member, your preference comes first, right after that. People. So it's up there.
Where does sibling preference go in line with that?
That's what,
With
ahead of
teachers as
that,
well.
right, so
Okay.
siblings first.
Got it.
So,
Okay, thank you, got it. Okay.
but again, in and out plays a role. We
Mhm.
use software to run this. And ultimately, we need to provide a little flexibility in that system. And so you see that when you look at the larger
Mhm.
policy comes your way.
Are there any guidelines from the state or from industry that help organizations like us make the determination about preference?
And
Do we have to follow any rules, or is it?
There's best practice, and there's plenty of examples out there. We've had a preference system, since day one here.
Okay.
So we're revisiting this. We had board preference in there. This is just replacing.
Yeah, I can partially, I mean, guidelines are one thing that the charter school law does permit preference for both siblings, explicitly for siblings and for parents of children who have participated in the development of the school, whatever, that's the language, which is pretty broad. So how you want to construe that beyond that, but certainly it's not, it doesn't violate the charter school law, I wouldn't say, based on my understanding.
Can it be construed as a benefit or compensation to an all-volunteer, non-compensated board?
I mean, I guess it could, it depends on for what purpose. I mean, certainly it wouldn't violate the charter school law because it specifically says you can do it. I don't know. It seems like it's fairly common, certainly for staff. And I think one thing, just from my perspective, others have been here longer, but just in terms of the governance committee and sort of thinking about recruiting, it certainly it could be, I mean, it works two ways, but certainly it could be something that would help to the extent that that's something that
Recruiting.
Recruiting, yeah. You don't want that to be the reason that people
Yep.
join, but, it certainly could be a benefit, I guess, in that sense. But
The flip side of that, though, is we recruit solid board members, but our bylaws do limit the number of parents we can have on the board.
that's right.
So that can be a slippery slope where you recruit what you think is a non-parent member, and then a child joins and they become a parent member. So we have a compliance issue there. One that I think can be managed, but it's just one of those ones that,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think it is manageable. And I don't know, John, maybe I mean, some of our peers, do you know how any of our peer schools handle this issue in terms of preferences for board members or staff?
I don't actually. Just always, it's looked as part of our policies. We always, I can certainly seek advice, right? We've got.
Just curious.
Go and take a look at some other charter schools in the same space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay to go it alone, but sometimes it's nice to know that you're not the only one doing something.
This would be just for active board members. I could imagine somebody serving 6 years, and they get pregnant and like their second term, but their child's not eligible for another few years. So it's just active board members.
You would,
That's a good question.
yeah, I mean, I think that would be something you'd want to think about. That might be tricky to implement, but certainly that's another reason to look and see what other schools have done potentially to make sure that, but yeah, you hope people are joining for the right reasons and continuing to go to meetings for the right reasons, but,
I think that goes to the definition of involvement, right? If they're off the board and otherwise, but if they also have a child in the school, then they get sibling preference, so.
What's the limit on parents on board? Do you know?
We have to, 25%, at least 25% need to be parents and at least 25% need to be non-parents. But we aim for 50-50.
And what's the enrollment, what's the intake for students that are here? Or how many students join on
Wait, so, all right, so I, in the, obviously.
First grade.
Plus, do I know the exact number, change to the 80?
I'm just trying to get a sense for the upper bound, for if you have parents with, say, 3 kids. How many are we squatting on talking about?
Yeah,
Just to get a sense of like,
yeah.
there's the ethics of it, and then there's also some practicality of what the upper bound may be.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any concerns? I mean, my inclination, not knowing anything about it at first, was that they seem like separate issues to me. You're on the board and or your kid goes to school, and they shouldn't really be a mixed issue. Would there be any concern that, similar to equitable concerns, equity, that we don't want to have people in sort of positions of power and privilege benefiting over people who are eligible to enter a lottery and not getting the same chance. Now, I don't have any dog in this fight. My kids are in a school district and they're not coming here. So, but this is maybe something that I can add, is having a little distance.
Yeah, I look at it from the other standpoint. I don't have a dog in this fight either. I already have a child here, and as far as I know, I don't have any other kids out there that are coming here. But I look at it as, this is a group of people who are really volunteering quite a bit of their time and energy for the school in an uncompensated way. So I don't think it's totally inappropriate to give some preference to the board members. Is how I would see it.
There's, I think, a question of where in the priority ranks, right?
Yeah, maybe I agree. That's a sibling question. I want to make sure we're not going.
So it's sibling, and then staff.
Yeah. Is there any preference after that, or that's where it cuts off? Besides the
Pittsburgh
in
Public,
versus
that's preference.
Pittsburgh Public, right?
In the
Okay.
city, yeah.
Then you get into all sorts of confusing where you start your, if you start kindergarten, if you have dynamic preferences. When the child gets in, then you reach up, switch further up, right? So as this moves through, you run your over through. Yes. Sibling, of course, interrupts. But if you have an in or out of city preference, sibling preference interrupts it.
Yeah.
So you kind of out of compliance with yourself.
I wish we had bylaws up. What do our bylaws say about just board attendance?
It doesn't say, it said should make, like should attend. It doesn't have you must attend 75% or you must, we don't have like a policy number.
Yeah.
So we would need to, I think, that would get,
Have an objective standard by which to measure.
I think so.
And there was a number, I believe, in the past that was in the board bylaws update was removed before my time, so I'm not sure what the discussion was back then. But there was a number at some point in history.
I will point out, we have 2 board members digitally here. So accessing board meetings when all of a sudden you were conflicting years past may be easier now going forward, now that we can zoom them in too. So it might be an option to revisit that.
Okay, so it sounds like you have some preliminary thoughts and interest in seeing best practices from other places. And then maybe we can regroup on this within a month or 2.
2 months.
2 months,
Our
okay.
goal should be getting the policy out in 2 months, right? Only the rolling stuff. Very short. So we'll go ahead and do that work. We'll get that rolled in to a policy.
Sweet.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so a quick update on the fund policy journey. And so our chair said at the beginning of the year, the goal should be to provide our community with outward-facing policies and have a system in which we can review, do, and ensure that this thing goes through. So giving you an update of where we are. Right? So certainly step 1 was to get our existing policies categorized, numbered, with a table of contents, and essentially review the table of contents. So I'm going to pass these down, which is our new table of contents. Lovely. And ultimately, that work has been done. And so this is the new numbered categorized version of all of our policies. Now, they're not publicly facing yet, so it's used for best practice numbering, so they categorize so they're accessible. You'll notice that people look back and share. There is now, of course, a master document, which will remain a master document. These huge binders essentially are realigned to this table of contents, right? Ultimately, they live and will live in the superintendent's office going forward and are accessible to the general public or any of the department heads. Now, you know, the finance department can grab their binder that essentially highlights their policies. The policies listed in front of you are our existing policies that we passed and lived with. They don't say when and where they were passed. So there is that. You'll notice that the 100 series is essentially a declaration, right? So our general policy statement, which is what's the purpose of a policy. We have one of those already. So that's in. We need to place our mission statement in as a statement, of course. One thing that we need to create, and we can create this on your behalf and then send it to the board for review, but the creation, amendment, and posting policy statement, which is really the statement that says this is how we review and post and review these policies going forward. And so we need to sort of get that done. And then essentially definitions. Doesn't need to be a million definitions. We looked at various different best practices. 10 or 12 definitions right there. What does EE mean in the context of all of these policies? So we can create that definitions document, get that to the board between now and October. And that essentially, we're now looking at a series of documents that are now in order. We have some sort of sense of ability to move through, right? So there we are there. Board Docs, which is the tool we're going to go ahead and use to upload. With there, I don't know if we can show the Apple facing. So we signed up for Board Docs, which is now Diligent Communities, because it was transformation. Which is jump in here. Ultimately, we have a page designed. It is not facing the public at this point, right? So our next job here, once we finish the 100 series, is to get those all uploaded into this. You can see what you want, and then ultimately we'll show it to you, right? So you can walk through as a board, and when you're happy with that, I think our first move is to move it publicly facing. So our community has access, faculty have access, our department chairs have access. So, again, I'll send you the links. But it's very pretty, and it's essentially it provides a space you can click on each individual PDF, which is each individual policy within each category. So the first order, we should be able to do that before October board meeting, so we can be able to do that. That ultimately will be done a little bit more. So diligent meetings say our launch should be in November. We will quicker than that. We're still being, here it is.
So our casting's not working, I'm not sure why. But this is what it looks like from the public side of things. So this would be the landing page for the public to see. You see it has the home, it has calendar, meetings, all of that stuff will be listed. They'll be able to click on the YouTube link from here, see the minutes, subscribe to the newsletter that'll remind them when the meetings are. Board policies, they'll be able to request to speak from here as well. So that's what the public page of it looks like. And then from the board member side, that's sort of kind of what it's going to be looking like for all of us and you as well. Once we decide when we're pushing it out, you all will receive an email that I push out, but it comes from Diligent Community, and it'll have the instructions on how you set up your password and what your username and whatnot is. So you guys will, your part will look more like this aside from the public site. So we have it.
Great, thank you.
We know a little about it at this point. I think as we learn more, we learn how to put a policy on there, to draft format, run it toward the community, or to work through its journey. But that's gonna have to be reflected in this 103, which is but that should give us the tool to move through one by one. The thought is that, as much as we rush at it, that our department chair, Michelle, for instance, now has access to all of these policies. As she walks through those, she's going to look at what's either redundant, what's not working, what she clearly needs to work on, and that way we can get it to go from request a policy and then move it through this. So I think, well done to the list folks. That's Christine Evans, who's going to go ahead and refind out all of these things. This table of contents. There you go, back. So let's go back.
Yeah, thank you for that update, and I think this is great the way that it's going. I know this has been an idea out there for many years, but I do want to point out that it was maybe we were spurred along a little bit by some parent feedback and public comment to move along in this area. So I want to thank you and commend you for receiving that feedback and coming up with a plan.
I think it's a really great piece of work, and it's been put off and been in various plans for a long time because it's complicated and takes a while. But I think this is really great work for everyone within the community, internally and externally. So, yeah, both getting done.
I agree. I just want to commend you on that also, John, because I know it can be tedious, some of this stuff, but I think it's really good. It's a very good institutional habit, I think, and we talk about it all the time, certainly at the university. At some point, you're only as good as your policies are at responding to sort of new and novel issues and things like that. So I think going through that process, even though it's cumbersome and time consuming, is really important. So.
Great, school safety and security.
So I kind of wanted to first share why I'm here usually, and in this part of the board meeting, usually all of our safety discussions happen in executive session for lots of good reason. We don't want to open ourselves up to more knowledge than needs to be out there in the public eye. So as I go through some of the things tonight, know that if you have questions, feel free to ask. I might just tell you to hold that to executive session. I'm happy to go a little bit more in depth later too in some of our practices that we see in the classroom. Also, there were some events in our community, internally and externally, that led to us also going to a PCO meeting. And so Dr. Hill and I went to that PCO meeting and wanted to share with you all as board members some of the information that was also shared to the parents at that evening. I thought it was great for you to hear also. And so, we also are thinking about a comprehensive survey for our parents and for our staff. So in your red folder, that is one of the things that you have. We'll look at that a little bit more. There are some questions in there that in executive session, we want to make sure we want to ask those questions because it may open ourselves up to the fact that we do or do not have items. And so we'll have to think about some of that together later tonight. I also am here every year with you as your safety and security coordinator for the district. So those of you who are new, I wear two hats, so that's one of the things that I do. And so if you're not familiar with my background in safety, ever since I started at the school, so probably 12 years ago or so, I've been on the safety committee and I've led it now for many years. Gone to many trainings. I go yearly to conferences, safety conferences, and there are weekly symposiums and organizations that I sit on, one of which is through the AIU. There's local, regional safety and security coordinators that all meet and talk about what's happening in schools, and it's a time to share and learn together. I also lead all the trainings for the school. I just led one for middle school. Michelle was there last night. So these things also tend to come together. So I also did that training last night. So I do love to talk about safety. People tend to go to my presentations and they're like, why are you so excited to talk about safety? I think that's what we're here for. We are here to make sure kids are safe. And so teachers are not just teachers anymore, administrators are not just administrators. Our goal is to make sure that kids feel safe, they know they're loved, they know they're cared about, but then also the physical safety is there. Our goal is to get kids home safe each and every day and learn something too, right? But we do want to make sure that parents have safe kids, We want administrators to be safe. I want my teachers to be safe. So we do a lot of that work behind the scenes. And so while it might just be kind of bubbling up to the surface in the parent community because of things that are happening, know that we talk about safety a lot. We train, we learn, we grow, we meet as a crisis management team as a district, we meet as building crisis management teams. We're constantly talking and sharing because ultimately we want our little ones to be safe so that they can learn. So if we think about kind of this hierarchy of needs, you have to feel safe in order to go ahead and learn things with it. And that is really, really at the forefront of my mind at all times. And when we think about safety in terms of our buildings, we always talk about it, I think I've done this for you before, but talking about it in terms of prevention, response, and then also post-prevention. And so if we think about proactive approaches and prevention, things that we've done in the past, one of the ones was that risk and vulnerability assessment that we do, and I share those results with you at the end of the year. But what is really neat about what we have this year, we went through Homeland Security instead of our trooper friends that usually come and do it. And we had local fire, EMS, police, and there were how many people? 20 people there? A lot of folks coming and talking to me, were combing through our documents, they were looking at our building, they were giving us feedback. And when you go with the Homeland Security version of risk and vulnerability assessment, we get a dashboard. And all of our answers to the questions that they give us are in this document. And so I get to then manipulate it. So I can say, if we do this now, and I put that new answer in, what will our graph look like? What will our risk and vulnerability score essentially look like if we make those improvements? So know that we are using that tool when we come and ask for things like we did today. So thank you all for approving the Raptor. That is going to be a huge way that we can communicate internally about things that are happening, and also ways that we can unify students with parents with ease. And so those types of decisions that we make are based off of all of the feedback that we're getting and all of the information in that risk and vulnerability assessment. So we think about that. We also think about relationships. So we all oftentimes, when we have a crisis or something happens, we think about the hardening of the shell. So we think about things like metal detectors, we think about bag checks, we think about doors and windows and locks and how do you make that thing look harder. But one of the things that we tell for schools and for kids is that relationships matter, and knowing your students is the thing that really is going to be the best proactive approach to anything. Kids who feel safe, kids who know that they have a trusted adult at school, and then kids who feel that they can share information. So it's really important that our staff are out there. You see them greeting kids every day, and I told this to the PCO when I went. They're not just greeting kids. So our staff are looking at students. They're looking at how they're walking in. Is this a student who's normally bubbly and doesn't look so bubbly today? They're talking to them. They're asking them little questions. They're forming a little picture of that child as they're walking in. And if they need some extra help, you'll see frequently someone will peel up and will walk the student in and will take them right to student services. And they'll take them right into the nursery. There's from the minute the student walks in the door until the minute they get on that bus, someone in this building, some adult is caring about them and thinking about them and making sure that they have what they need each and every day. So we think about that in terms of safety also. It's not just about the physical things, but it's also about how we interact with each other. Also, as far as a layered approach, we do have those things, right? We do have some of those hardening things. I will not share what those are right now. I can share, we'll talk about those in executive session. We don't want to tell people out in the community where we have certain items, where security people are, what their schedules look like, because we don't want to be vulnerable to any sort of attack in that day. We also train our staff on awareness. We're out in the park a lot, so we talk about situational awareness. What does that look like? What does it look like to be aware of your surroundings and constantly thinking about kids and what else is out there? And again, it's really hard. We're asking staff members to go on hikes with students, care about what they're doing, teach a lesson while they're outside, and then also think about what's happening in the world around them. And Ms. Kennick is here, and she's one of the best when it comes to that, right? So she takes kids outside, she's doing that all the time. And we would not be here if we didn't have staff members who are also doing that with our students, and then making sure that they're safe to go home every day too. So, we really we can't do this alone. I can't do this alone as a safety and security coordinator. I need teachers to be trained. They need to be able to tell me when things are not working. We have a very open dialogue as far as our safety and security goes. Teachers share with us. We make adjustments as needed, and we go from there. We also do drills. I mean, there's tons of things. I can fill your head with knowledge if you want to, but sometimes I get a little excited about it. We do have Safe to Say too, if you're not familiar with it. As a board member, you also have the ability, anybody really in the state has the ability to use Safe to Say as a way to tell someone that there is something unsafe going on in the community. Kids, parents, community members, they go online, it's a tip line, you can either do it on phone, you can do it email, you can do it on the computer, there's an app, and kids are able to say anonymously if they think that there's something going on. And those tips come directly to administrators, student services, school psychologists, myself, and also Dwight Lockman. If it is a life safety tip, they will call us. So they will start down the line and they'll call us, even if it is 2 o'clock in the morning, and I've gotten a call at 2 o'clock in the morning, the child, we got a report, the child might be unsafe. I need their address because the police are gonna go and make sure that child is safe right now. And that's what we do. We sign up for that. We know that we're gonna get those calls because we wanna make sure that our kids are safe. We also have, I talked a little bit about trusted adults. We wanna make sure, and we talk to kids about it, when you go home, you have a trusted adult at home, whoever that is, and you need a trusted adult at school. Because if we're not knowing about what's going on, we can't act appropriately and efficiently. And so, a lot of times, students' trusted adult is at school. It might not be at home. And so it might be a coach, it might be a teacher, it might be a cafeteria staff member. It could be anyone. And so all of our staff are trained in what to do if something is disclosed to them and how they can support action. We also have Raptor. It's our visitor management tool, it's our threat assessment tool, and now it would be our response tool. So that's great too. And so that's all of our prevention in a nutshell. But what happens if something happens? So then we go into response. We have incident command, which is typically a FEMA structure, is what happens in a crisis. We train, we have drills for staff. Last night we just talked about our standard response protocol, what happens in each one of those 5 areas. I think you also might, do they have that in your you might have this in your package. So this is what is up in our classrooms. We share this with families. Our goal is to have shared language with anyone who's in our building. This is also the foundation, the Nairobi Foundation is taking this idea of shared language and really using to follow steps very seriously, and it's like sweeping essentially schools across the nation. So there's quite a few schools in our area that are also adopting the standard response so that our local responders know what's happening and we can hear the language that we're using and respond appropriately too. So that's really important. We also debrief. So once something happens, our CMT meets together, we say what happened, what went well, what didn't go well, and we improve. What do we want to do next time? We are constantly evolving and changing. The document that we had, that was our crisis manual 12 years ago, is not the same document that it is today, and it won't be the same that it is tomorrow. Every time you hear something, every time you learn something, you know we make a change if it's best practice and if it will be with best things. Also, we have things that we can, we're not going to get specifics about ways that we can respond, but we do have ways to quickly interact with our local law enforcement if we need to. We also have ways that we communicate with them. So when the incident did happen around our school here, we were on the phone constantly. We were talking with Zone 5, we were talking with 911, we were talking with our security office. So there are lots of ways that we gather input when that event happens. It's not just something happens, that's it, we're going to respond, we don't take any other input. We're constantly learning, constantly changing. And I also think it's important to know that situations evolve. And what you get at 9 a.m. might not be the same situation at 3 a.m. And so that day, when we were I was in the building, my day was taking input in and figuring out and filtering all of that input and figuring out how to keep our kids safe. Did we need to go into lockdown? Did we just need to be in a secure building? Were we able to release staff members that were transient, that were here for the day? Maybe not. could we even let our kids go home? That was a question. We had no idea. No one knew. Is that event going to be over in 5 minutes? Was it going to be over in 5 hours? Was it going to be over in 12 hours? And we were just trying our best to stay, and which is what you do in any crisis. You take the information in, you make decisions, the best decisions that you can, the information that you have at the time. Now, looking back on it, were there other things, communication styles, things that we could have done? Absolutely, we take that information and learn from it, but know that we never intend to make a decision in a crisis that would do anything to harm a child, to harm an adult, or to keep information from families. But I also want to say that I will never communicate anything with the family unless I know it's 100% true. So I don't want to put information out there and then say, oh no, I'm sorry, I forgot, it's not right, let me do this, let me do that. I think also that's not fair to families to keep hearing changing misinformation along the way. And you know, this is pretty standard as it goes to schools all over the place. The very first communication you get about any crisis as a family member, including my own, I have a little one who's in school, and I get same type of input as a parent. It's maddeningly vague. All you know is something happened. You don't know what is happening. You want to rush there. You want to protect your own child. And we're asking parents to stay away from buildings, to trust us, to know that we have their children's best interest at heart, and that is hard. And I know it, because in your heart as a parent, you feel like in that moment, what you can do is rush to your child, and you want to scoop them up, and you want to keep them protected as much as you can. And sometimes we're going to tell parents, you can't come to it. So that day we were in a secure building, no one was coming in, and no one was going out. So parents wanted to get keys, they couldn't get them. And that's really hard to say. And those are the decisions that we're making in the moment, and know that they're not decisions that we take. After an event happens, there's a ton of reunification that might need to happen. Luckily, the Raptor software that you approve will 100% change the reunification system for us. It'll be really smooth, really easy. Parents who show IDs will be able to quickly and efficiently have the parent link up to the child and triple check along the way that that's the parent that needs to be with that child. We also have student services follow-up. Anytime there's a situation that happens, student services is right there. They provide extra counseling if needed. We always tell parents that they can reach out to us too in that moment. And the goal there is to provide enough support to get us back to our baseline, and so that we can keep it. Because nothing is going to be like quickly over. We just need to make sure that we're providing as much support as we can. And so, you know, communication, always, we will email what we know we can. We really want to make sure that we're taking input from our surveys too. So when we look at the survey later, we can think about what's best and how we can do that. And then I think that's all I want to share with you until every session. There's a lot. So I will pause and say, do you have any questions?
Just to clarify, so, and I apologize if you said this and I missed it. Is email the primary way that you communicate with parents during a crisis? Or
yeah. Okay. So it would be if it's a low level situation, you get an email, but if it is when the school's in lockdown, you're going to get a text and a phone call, whatever your preference is. So like phone call, email.
And that's a direct text, it's not through an app or something like that?
It's through our
okay.
Student information.
Okay. But not an app that a parent has to download or something? Okay.
No, that's Raptor. So, I'll share more insight.
Sure.
About the app.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. All right. Next item of business, our CCSFT representative, Susanna.
Hey.
It's funny, I know a lot of you know the parents who do is like when they're college involved and former parents. So I teach their third grade. I'm also trying to pass some giving responsibilities onto my colleagues and also attend meetings as We just have 3 notes today. We wanted to thank the board for approving capital improvements to our buildings, especially the intermediate building, the staff deals, the new lounge space, and teachers who just got new furniture in the classroom. I'm really happy to not have little hand-down chairs and tables. Wonderful, makes the classroom feel really warm. And we also wanted to thank the PCO for reaching out and coming to all of our staff meetings to open up communication, and also for the local health care practices in the staff office. She is still fully stocked in the high school. Bed and things. And lastly, we just wanted to let you know that COVID, the impacts of COVID are still like kind of like looming over the heads of those staff. And at our last home office meeting, this stuff, we already started the conversation, so we look forward to continuing to talk about how staff shortages and how we can troubleshoot this. But that's it. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, speaking of which, our PCO representative here.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. This is the first meeting I've attended since school this year, so I'm really happy to be here. A couple of things I want to touch on. Dr. Cribbs, I thank you for your safety presentation there. And from the PCO, we had our first PCO welcome meet and greet, and we hosted it as a picnic. Bring your own blanket, bring your own utensils for your family, and it's a potluck kind of deal. And during that time, it kind of collided with one of the events at our school, which prompted some safety concerns. And Dr. Cribbs, Mr. McCann, and Dr. Hill graciously gave us their time at that meeting, and were able to publicly address any concerns that any one of our community, our families, our PCO, anybody had, and could really engage in an open Q&A at that moment. And I think that a lot of concerns for us that were kind of going over social media after these said events were calmed, and it was just really, we're really thankful for the time that you gave us at our first meeting, so thank you. Secondly, sort of in the wake of these safety issues and concerns that have come up for our parents, whether it be communications or actual events, last year I remember bringing up our struggle with developing our DEI committee. And what does that look like for us? And how do we get inclusion and diversity in this whole talk with the whole span of our school and all of its diversity? And I think personally, and shared with the PCO, it's moments like these where we're like, how can this be happening to us? These are things that you read about in the news. How can we be impacted by this? This is exactly what DEI looks like. And I think instead of saying, oh my gosh, do we need metal detectors and do we need to go here and there and everywhere, what we need to do is come together as a community and know that the love and support of all of us together is what fixes these moments, I think, or at least helps soften the blow to all of us in these instances. Speaking of DEI, we do have a new chair in the PCO. Jonathan Baldwin is going to be heading that department, which I'm really excited about his ideas in supporting that going further. Along with the new chair for DEI, we have many new faces in our steering committee. Becky Marinov, which most of you know as our volunteer coordinator last year, has now stepped up to lead us, our fearless PCO leader, and she's doing a great job. We've got some help in the Treasury Department with a new addition, Brian Henry. His wife, Lindsay, has actually sat on this board before, so he's intertwined and getting excited about spearheading things like mini grants and fundraising, all that kind of good stuff. We have a new secretary. Let's see, a new intermediate vice chair, and Sarah B. Fisher has moved up. and a new teacher appreciation committee leader in Jocelyn Meyer, who I'm really excited has a lot of ideas. Instead of limiting teacher appreciation to 1 week in the spring, we're trying to give teachers sprinkles of love every month, something to look forward to, just little sentiments of goodness that they can look forward to every month and beyond. Our communications department in Lou, I am happy to report last year we really didn't know 2468 how we communicate. This year we do. We have a Slack communication that is active and lively. And we're also, Lou is in weekly correspondence with Dina at ECS. We're getting help with a real website now, which we're very proud of. And it just seems like I was boasting last year, we're in a rebuilding phase. The PCO is rebuilding. Well, we are really getting there. We have some foundation and solid ground this year, which I'm happy to report. Let's see. We are still lacking in all of our steering committee roles a high school vice chair, which goes on to say we are struggling with connection to a high school. We've got participation in primary school and intermediate school, and middle school is warming up with a great vice chair in there, but high school, we still are struggling with connection and bridges, and how can PCO help this school, and what kinds of needs does the high school, and what do the students want or need. We even thought about inviting a high school student to stand as that vice chair representative. And it just goes back to kind of, I do, we do, you do. And in that phase, in the last part of your, education, you're about to launch in high school. So learning some of these skills, sitting on a committee, making decisions, going to board for your school, I think would be a really great hat to wear for a student. We have thought about that in many ways, but I would like to ask teachers to maybe do a nomination or some sort, maybe we can get the gears moving in that way. Because it remains, the high school chair remains vacant, and we're looking for ways to build that bridge and close that gap. Let's see. That's the high school. Our meeting. Okay, so our very first meeting, our very first steering committee meeting, we had a very special guest, and that was Ms. Sukenick, who came and sat with us and hipped us to a lot of the inside teacher stuff. And we tried to get really to the bottom of better communications and maybe putting some PCO stuff into the weekly hey-hays that the teachers are getting, just so there's, again, the more open communication that we can have, the better. So we're getting our foot in the door there. Coming up, our next PCO meeting is October 4th, right here, 6 to 8. And we have 2 guest speakers signed up or agreed to. Mr. Tudelo, who will be talking about his personal touch on the middle school and the changes he's made here, and Nicole Schaefer, who's agreed to come talk to us about some of the developments in the foundation and maybe partnerships that we can. The PCO has a baloney budget. Let's just put it out there. So we have hopes and dreams of doing and lifting and all these things, but the funding. So Nicole is interested in maybe learning more about our mini grant process, and maybe taking over the little things that we're doing in mini grants, like supplies for teachers or filling the refrigerator with Diet Coke for our teachers, or these little things. Maybe there are bigger grants that she can take over and we can do more fun things like fall festival parties or game nights and just concentrations and the fun things. Speaking of our upcoming events, Fall Festival is a big one. It's going to be held on October 20th at the Intermediate, and the committees are now planning what that's going to look like. Hopefully some hay bale bowling alleys and dunk tanks and pies in the face, some bugs, who knows? The sky's the limit there. But we have a new volunteer coordinator in Molly Camp who is so eager, and her energy is just so contagious. And I have hopes and dreams for all the things that she has in store. We have a Blooming Bash committee that's being formed right now, so that is on the docket for us to be our big fundraiser this year. Our plant sale pickup is Friday. We also have a fundraiser coming up with Frick Park Market. And basically on the 29th of September, any sales at Frick Park Market that and you go in, get a meal, 20% of the proceeds come back to the PCO. Great. We're also participating this year in the Point Breeze yard sale. We're going to get rid of some of those stocked up uniforms that we've been collecting in my garage and various places over the course of last year. And I think that this has been a long stock since COVID. We have so much. So we're going to offer it to the public and participate in the yard sale and sling some $2 uniform pieces to whoever's in need. And outside of that, that wraps us up on all of our goings-ons. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
you.
You're welcome.
A yard sale's fun.
It is fun. We're excited. We want to get into all of them. We want to put a table at, the big Highland Park stuff. But if you think about it, if we put out like hey, anybody who's got that lamp they don't want to be lugging into the basement, and do like a reuse, and any parent who's getting rid of whatever, somebody else's junk is another's treasure, we could make big money on a yard sale just by donations from our community. So yeah, yard sale, dreams.
Okay, thank you again.
Yes.
Quick follow-up question. Is there a student government high school that gives representation there?
Okay, hearing officer, what is the background of that? Or we need to?
I don't think we went through that.
We did go through it.
Yeah, but essentially, we need at least 2 hearing offices.
Okay.
Like I say, you offered up today.
Okay, great. So we'll just go to the vote. Resolution 2023-8-2099, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the following board members will fulfill the role and responsibilities of hearing officers for the 2023-2024 school year. Adam Tobias and David Turner. You want to make that motion? Except I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, congratulations, David.
Time for a speech or?
Yes, please.
So we don't need to use it.
Is there a vote?
Oh.
Okay, the other side, there you go. So I think we have anyone.
Where's the-
Okay. Here, we sign this now, if that's great.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Roger Blair.
I read my oaths out loud.
Okay. Okay, the other two resolutions, we're gonna hold for discussion in the executive committee before we come back to vote on those. Construction issues, real estate issues. Anything else for the general session before we move to executive session? Okay, do I have a motion to move to executive session? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now going to executive session. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Oopsie.
That is on the docket.
I don't know if this is on.